It was a sweltering Tuesday morning at Atlanta's bustling airport, the kind of day where the heat pressed against your skin the moment you stepped outside. The terminal buzzed with the relentless hum of travelers, wheels rolling, announcements echoing overhead, the faint scent of coffee and pretzels mingling in the air. Families hurried to their gates, suited professionals scanned emails on their phones, and children tugged at their parents' hands, impatient and excited. Among them moved Amya Johnson, 19, slight and deceptively fragile-looking, with a presence that demanded attention if one cared to notice. Her blazer was pressed, her black slacks crisp, and her shoes clicked lightly against the polished floor as she maneuvered through the throng. Beneath her calm exterior, a storm of nerves and anticipation churned. Amya's mission today was ordinary by the world's standards but critical in her professional universe. As a freshly minted FAA safety inspector, she had spent months training, shadowing veterans, and memorizing the ins and outs of airline compliance. Today she would perform her first independent inspection at Delta Airlines, C-14 gate, a routine assignment, yet she carried herself with a mixture of confidence and the cautious humility that only someone aware of the stakes could. Every detail mattered. Every procedural misstep she might catch could prevent catastrophe. The boarding area was chaotic but ordinary until she approached the counter. Behind it stood Tyler, a 20-something gate agent with a well-practiced air of authority. He wore the standard Navy uniform and a name tag glinting under the fluorescent lights. His smile was polite, but his eyes carried the subtle impatience of someone who had endured hours of repeat questions and frazzled passengers. When he scanned Amya's boarding pass, the scanner beeped and flashed red. Tyler frowned, adjusting the badge clip to his shirt. "Ma'am," he said, his voice firm but edged with irritation, "I need to see your ID. You're not cleared to board this flight." Amya paused, blinking in mild surprise, then smoothly reached into her bag. "I am cleared," she said, her tone measured, steady, professional. "I am FAA personnel. You're stopping me from doing my job." She produced a thin leather wallet, flipping it open to reveal a gold FAA badge that glimmered under the fluorescent lights. Tyler's brow furrowed, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. Ma'am," he stammered, fumbling with the scanner. I just need to verify." His words trailed off as Amya's calm, steady gaze met his. There was no anger, no pleading, just unyielding authority in the quietest form. Passengers nearby began to murmur, some glancing up from phones, curious about the rising tension at gate C-14. Amya's posture remained impeccable, shoulders back, chin lifted. She noticed the small things, Tyler's tightening grip on the scanner, the way his eyes flickered to her badge but then away, the subtle twitch of his jaw that betrayed discomfort. She could feel the crowd's attention shift, sensing the moment of conflict and bracing for what might unfold. "I understand you're doing your job," she said evenly, "but I am doing mine. I am required to board this flight for inspection. Any delay compromises safety compliance and could put passengers at risk." Tyler swallowed hard, caught between adherence to policy and the undeniable authority radiating from Amya. His voice rose, frustrated and sharp. "I don't care who you are. Rules are rules. If your ID doesn't match our system, you don't board." Whispers erupted around the terminal. Phones emerged, cameras clicking, recording. A woman in line nudged her child aside and whispered, "Isn't that the FAA badge?" But no one spoke up loud enough to interrupt the growing tension. Amya noticed, her expression remaining unreadable but inwardly calculating. She could see Tyler's insecurity, young, inexperienced under pressure, and now the center of scrutiny from both passengers and management. The murmur of the crowd grew. People shifted uncomfortably, some moving closer to witness the confrontation, others stepping back, unsure whether to intervene. Every eye in the boarding area seemed to latch onto this moment. Amya felt a surge of adrenaline, not fear but focus. She knew the optics mattered as much as the procedure. One wrong word, one misstep, and the story of this confrontation could spiral across social media before her inspection was even complete. Then Tyler slammed the scanner down on the counter, the metallic clang echoing sharply through the terminal. "Step aside. I'm calling my manager," he barked, trying to reassert control. His hand shook slightly as he picked up the phone, fumbling the cord against the countertop. The passengers behind him shifted, leaning forward with curiosity, some raising phones higher to record the interaction. Amya remained poised, voice calm, unwavering. "I suggest you do that," she replied. "And while you're at it, verify my credentials before you hold up an entire flight." She didn't raise her voice, but every word carried weight. The subtle authority of experience, the quiet command of someone who understood the gravity of her responsibilities, resonated in the crowded terminal. Within moments, a middle-aged woman in a crisp uniform arrived at the counter. She was the gate manager, impeccably composed, hair neatly tied back, eyes scanning the scene with practiced precision. Tyler's relief was fleeting. The manager's gaze immediately landed on Amya, on the badge, and on the palpable tension rolling through the crowd. Amya slowly reached into her bag again, flipping the badge so that the manager could see it clearly. The crowd seemed to hold its collective breath as the gold FAA emblem caught the overhead lights. Tyler's jaw went slack, and for a moment the terminal seemed to freeze. People leaned on carts, peered over shoulders, all fixated on the small, quiet figure that had become the center of attention. "FAA Inspector," Amya said simply, her voice steady. "I am here to conduct a routine safety inspection. Any delay at this point could compromise compliance and passenger safety." The manager's eyes narrowed slightly, processing, calculating, recognizing the authority presented to her in such an unassuming form. Tyler shuffled backward, muttering under his breath, I didn't know." But Amya wasn't finished. Her phone buzzed, subtle but urgent. She glanced down. A coded alert flashed across her screen. "Security breach detected at Gate D." Her heart skipped. This was unexpected. A routine boarding inspection was now colliding with something far more serious. Passengers exchanged glances, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. The tension that had already been building at Gate C-14 transformed into something thicker, more ominous. The terminal's background noise, the rolling luggage, the distant boarding calls, faded in Amya's awareness as her mind immediately pivoted. The FAA badge had commanded authority, but now action was required. And just as she met Tyler's eyes, the buzzing alert reminded her. This was no longer just a confrontation at the gate. Something more dangerous was unfolding. The passengers, the gate agents, even the manager, remained unaware that the quiet young woman in black had already begun calculating the next steps. Every second counted. Every misstep could escalate. And in that precise moment, the terminal held its breath, waiting to see what Amya Johnson, FAA inspector, would do next. Amya's fingers lingered over her phone screen, the coded alert blinking insistently, but she forced herself to stay composed. One step at a time. She turned back to Tyler and the manager, letting her calm authority anchor the chaos around them. The terminal's energy had shifted. The hum of impatient travelers was now underscored by anxious whispers, the occasional gasp, and the unmistakable clicking of smartphone cameras. Every passenger wanted a glimpse of the young woman who had stopped a flight, literally, and now radiated a quiet command. "Manager," Tyler stammered, voice tight with embarrassment and mounting panic. She says she's FAA, her badge." "I see her badge," the manager interrupted, tone clipped, eyes darting between the badge and the crowded line of passengers. "But I need to verify with Central before allowing her to board. Standard procedure." Amya's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Every second wasted here could ripple across the flight's operations and, worse, potentially compromise safety. "Manager," she said evenly, projecting authority without shouting, "verification is fine, but time is critical. I need to be on board immediately. There's an active compliance check underway. A delay could." Her voice cut off as the murmur in the crowd grew louder. Phones were held higher, Passengers leaned on the counter to catch a glimpse. A man in a baseball cap whispered, "Is she serious? That's an FAA badge." A woman snapped a selfie, catching Amya in the background, her expression serene yet sharp. Tyler's hands twitched. He looked around, desperate for support. I'm following procedure," he said again, his voice cracking slightly. "I can't let anyone board without." "Without authority," Amya interrupted, her voice calm but icy. She stepped closer, her eyes locking with his. "Authority is not determined by fear or procedure alone. Authority is based on responsibility, and right now my responsibility supersedes your rules. Do you understand?" Tyler's face paled and the words stuck in his throat. He glanced at the growing crowd, the phones, the eyes fixed on him and then back at her badge. The weight of the moment crashed down on him. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally muttered, I have to call security." Amya didn't flinch. "Do it, but make it quick. This flight can't wait." As Tyler fumbled with the phone, Amya felt a tug of unease. Her alert hadn't been a false alarm. Security had already detected unusual activity at Gate D, just a few hundred feet away. Someone was in a restricted area and they weren't supposed to be there. The thought tightened her chest, not fear but a razor-sharp focus. Just then a man in the line muttered loudly enough for several nearby passengers to hear, "She's in charge. Really, she's a kid." His words, dripping with doubt, sparked murmurs in the crowd. Amya's eyes flicked toward him. He was probably in his 40s, dressed in a rumpled suit, clearly impatient to board. She didn't acknowledge him, but her mind cataloged his presence. Every detail mattered in moments like this. Tyler's voice finally rose again, more forceful this time. "Manager, I need you here." The manager strode closer, her expression tightening. "Step aside, please," Amya instructed softly, but her words carried an authority that made passengers shuffle back. "I need to speak directly with your team while the situation is assessed. The flight's compliance inspection cannot be delayed." Tyler hesitated, then muttered something under his breath and backed away. The manager exhaled sharply, muttering, "This is ridiculous." Amya turned her attention back to her phone. The live alert showed a figure moving unnervingly through the boarding area near Gate D. They were masked and wearing a loose jacket, blending in with other passengers. Amya's heart rate ticked upward, just slightly, but she forced herself to breathe evenly. Training kicked in. She knew every step she took now would determine how quickly security could neutralize the situation. She looked back at Tyler and spoke with calm decisiveness. "All boarding is suspended until the security team verifies the perimeter. Everyone stays behind the line." She swept her gaze over the waiting passengers. "I need everyone to remain calm and follow instructions." Tyler's mouth opened, then closed again. He nodded reluctantly, suddenly aware that he had no real authority here. The crowd, sensing the shift in control, began moving obediently back. The tension in the terminal thickened, turning almost tactile. Amya's focus snapped back to the man near Gate D. He was fidgeting, glancing toward the gates and clearly nervous, but not enough to draw attention to himself. The subtle movements of his hands, the rhythm of his steps, her training told her something wasn't right. She radioed discreetly to airport security, "Target in restricted area, masked male, monitor closely. Do not engage until I confirm." Meanwhile, Tyler's embarrassment festered. Passengers were staring, phones were recording. The murmurs grew louder, snippets of the confrontation spreading like wildfire. "She's an inspector," someone whispered. Another passenger muttered, "He just stopped an FAA agent." The tension escalated further when a small child tripped near the counter. Amya reacted instantly, scooping him up with precision, shielding him as his mother rushed forward. The move was fluid, trained, yet instinctual. Parents in the crowd gasped quietly, recording the moment, capturing her calm under pressure. Tyler flinched, watching the young woman handle a crisis he couldn't begin to comprehend. Her phone buzzed again, a second alert this time. Restricted area breach escalating. Confirmed movement near emergency exit F2. The terminal seemed to contract around her. Adrenaline sharpened her senses. Every second, every heartbeat mattered. Passengers shifted uneasily, sensing danger but unsure of what it was. Amya knew the boarding line had become a potential target area, and the man at Gate D might be just the first in a chain of threats. She glanced at Tyler again. His face was pale, jaw tight, hands trembling slightly. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but she held up a finger, cutting him off. Not now. Let the professionals handle it. The manager, still skeptical but aware of the escalating situation, nodded stiffly. She stepped aside, allowing Amya to move closer to the boarding area while still keeping the crowd contained. Amya could feel hundreds of eyes on her, some curious, some fearful, some skeptical. She had become the center of attention without asking for it. And then over the loudspeaker, a chilling, automated voice cut through the terminal. "Attention! Unattended bag detected near Gate D. Evacuate immediately. Security personnel, respond to Gate D." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones clicked, passengers froze, some backing away in alarm. Tyler froze, hands raised in uncertainty. Even the manager's polished demeanor faltered slightly. Amya's pulse quickened, but she didn't panic. Her voice, calm yet commanding, rose over the din. "Everyone remain calm. Step back from the gates. Security is responding. Follow instructions carefully." Her eyes scanned the area again. The masked man near Gate D froze briefly, then disappeared behind a column. She had to act, but she couldn't let panic spread. The line of passengers shifted, murmuring, some filming, some whispering in disbelief. Amya took a deep breath, knowing that the next few minutes would define whether chaos erupted or if order could be restored before disaster struck. And in that tense, electric moment, she realized the confrontation with Tyler had been only the beginning. The real test was just beginning, and every second now carried the weight of potential catastrophe. The terminal had transformed into a scene of controlled chaos. Passengers huddled in small clusters, murmuring anxiously, while phones captured every second of the unfolding drama. Children clung to parents' hands, some wide-eyed, others crying softly. The automated announcement repeated itself, the metallic voice echoing off the polished floors. "Attention! Unattended bag detected near Gate D. Evacuate immediately. Security personnel, respond to Gate D." Amya's eyes narrowed. The mask of calm she wore concealed the storm of calculation behind it. Every movement, every second, every passenger mattered now. She was trained to notice the small details others overlooked, the subtle shift in a body's posture, the way a hand lingered near a concealed pocket, the irregular rhythm of steps. Her instincts screamed that the alert was not a false alarm. Someone had bypassed security, and the unattended bag was just a distraction. She adjusted the strap of her black leather bag, revealing, just for a moment, the glint of her FAA badge. Tyler and the manager flinched as the symbol of federal authority radiated weight across the terminal. Tyler's earlier confidence had evaporated completely. He now stood frozen, staring at her as if seeing her for the first time. Not just a passenger, not just a young woman, but someone whose job carried life-or-death consequences. "Manager," Amya said quietly yet firmly, "I need full control of this situation. Every exit, every gate, every piece of luggage. We cannot afford mistakes." The manager swallowed, nodding reluctantly, motioning Tyler aside. "Go ahead, Inspector. I'll coordinate with staff." Amya moved swiftly toward Gate D, her eyes scanning the crowd. Security personnel had arrived, their heavy boots clicking against the floor, radios crackling. But the masked figure had vanished from the line of sight. She crouched briefly behind a pillar, evaluating the flow of passengers and staff. Her heartbeat remained steady. Inside, adrenaline coursed. But outside, she projected complete control. Every movement was deliberate, precise. Then she noticed it, a subtle, almost imperceptible pattern in the crowd. Someone had positioned themselves near the emergency exit, a man whose movements seemed measured, careful, almost rehearsed. He glanced at the nearest security officer, then down the terminal corridor as if timing his next step. Amya's eyes locked on him. She radioed discreetly, "Target near emergency exit F2, masked male, possible threat. Approach cautiously, await my confirmation." The man shifted slightly, glancing toward gate C14, toward Amya herself. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. He didn't know who she was yet, but he sensed authority, presence, control. Amya felt a surge of clarity. This was no ordinary passenger. Every instinct in her body screamed that he was armed, or at the very least dangerous. She turned back to the line where Tyler was still floundering. His hands trembled as he gestured vaguely to the passengers. Amya's gaze cut him down like a blade. "Step aside," she said, voice quiet but commanding. "You are no longer in control here. Follow my instructions or get out of the way." Tyler's shoulders slumped. He muttered something incoherent and retreated toward the manager. The passengers shifted uneasily, sensing the tension rising, sensing the authority radiating from this young woman who had, in an instant, taken over the terminal. Phones continued to click, flashes of cameras illuminating her face in intermittent strobe. And then the revelation hit the crowd like a sudden storm. One passenger, unable to contain himself, shouted across the terminal, "She's an FAA inspector. She's the one in charge." The word spread like wildfire. Heads turned, whispers erupted. Some people stared, mouths agape. Others raised phones, documenting the scene. The crowd collectively realized that the young woman who had just been stopped from boarding was, in fact, the authority overseeing safety compliance for the airline and possibly preventing disaster. Amya felt a ripple of satisfaction. Public recognition wasn't her goal. Her goal was control, safety, order. But the awareness helped. Passengers were now looking to her for direction rather than floundering in fear. Yet her focus could not shift from the real threat. She scanned the terminal again, tracking the masked man's movements through the crowd. He had positioned himself near the unattended bag, now partially obscured by a cleaning cart. Her mind raced through scenarios. The bag could be a decoy, it could be harmless, or it could be a trigger. She had to act before any passenger ventured too close. Her phone buzzed again, a secondary alert, more urgent this time. Possible perimeter breach escalating. Confirmed unauthorized presence near restricted boarding gates. Immediate response required. Amya's jaw tightened. This was no longer routine. This was a test of her training, her composure, her authority under pressure. She directed the security team in precise instructions, their radios crackling with her voice. "Seal exits A through F. Evacuate passengers from the boarding area near D. Focus on keeping the crowd calm. I am approaching the potential threat." Security officers moved in tandem, like a well-rehearsed unit, following her lead. Amya's steps were purposeful, her badge catching the overhead lights as she approached Gate D. The masked man froze as she drew closer, sensing her presence like a predator aware of its prey. The crowd's anxiety intensified. Phones captured every subtle move, the way she crouched slightly, assessing the man, the way she motioned discreetly to officers, the controlled calm in the face of imminent danger. And then, the man made a small, almost imperceptible motion with his hand toward his coat pocket. Amya's instincts flared. Every training exercise she had ever done in FAA simulations, every scenario she had studied, every instinct honed over months of rigorous preparation told her. He was armed, and the situation was about to escalate. Her voice, calm but piercing, carried over the controlled chaos. "Step away from the bag. Now, all of you." Passengers obeyed, a ripple of motion spreading as the terminal cleared behind her. Security closed in on the masked man from multiple angles. The tension became almost suffocating. Every heartbeat was amplified, every footstep, every whisper from the crowd. Amya moved closer, closing the distance in measured steps. The man froze, realizing he had been detected, that his plan, whatever it was, had been anticipated. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked, and she saw the fear, or perhaps frustration, in his gaze. And then, as she reached out, he made a sudden, rapid movement toward the exit. In an instant, Amya lunged, intercepting him with precision trained by countless drills. Security surged around her, pulling him back and restraining him. The crowd gasped collectively. Phones flashed, capturing the moment for posterity. A young FAA inspector, 19 years old, had prevented a potential catastrophe with nothing but composure, training, and courage. As the man was secured, Amya took a deep breath, heart racing but mind sharp. She scanned the cleared terminal, noting every passenger, every officer, every potential weak point. The situation was stabilized, but only temporarily. Her phone buzzed again. Another alert, another warning, next potential threat detected, active monitoring required. Amya's pulse didn't falter. She squared her shoulders, adjusted her bag, and looked around the terminal. The confrontation with Tyler, the disbelief of passengers, the masked man, it had all led to this. And she knew, with a certainty that sent a chill through her, that this was far from over. The terminal had transformed into a controlled frenzy. Passengers clustered in pockets along the polished floors, murmuring anxiously, some holding children, others frozen with fear, all of them holding their phones as if documenting the scene could somehow make it safer. The metallic, impersonal voice over the loudspeaker repeated, "Attention! Unattended bag detected near Gate D. Evacuate immediately." "Security personnel, respond to Gate D." It echoed harshly against the glass walls, bouncing off columns, amplifying the sense of danger. Amya's heart pounded with a quiet, focused intensity. Her training dictated every movement, every decision. She had handled simulated crises countless times, but nothing felt quite like this. Real people, real fear, and the weight of responsibility pressing down with almost physical force. She moved swiftly, her black blazer brushing against the crowd as she made her way toward the gates, keeping her badge visible to both passengers and officers. Everyone stepped back from the gates. Remain calm and follow instructions. Her voice carried across the chaos, sharp but calm, slicing through the panic like a knife. People hesitated, uncertain, until her tone, full of authority, compelled obedience. Slowly, passengers began to move, stepping behind the designated safety lines. Mothers clutched children tighter, teens fumbled with backpacks, and elderly passengers shuffled backward, some muttering in disbelief. She reached the frontline security officers stationed near Gate D. Their radios crackled incessantly, officers speaking over one another, tension thick in their voices. Amya didn't flinch. She pulled the closest officer aside and issued a series of rapid commands, each precise and direct. Seal all exits between D and F. Focus on perimeter control. Check every ID, every bag. No exceptions. Do not let anyone near the boarding area unless I authorize it. Understood. The officer nodded, urgency written on his face. Understood, ma'am, moving now. Amya's eyes scanned the terminal floor like a predator analyzing its environment. The masked man had disappeared momentarily, but her instincts told her he had not left. He was blending into the crowd, waiting for the right moment. She needed to act before he could reach the exits or the bag. Meanwhile, the crowd's attention began to turn toward her. Phones recorded every move, the way she crouched to assess the flow of passengers, the precision with which she directed officers, the calm determination in her gaze. A young mother whispered, "Look at her, she's in charge." Another teen snapped a video, capturing the tension and composure like a cinematic scene. Then a small child tripped near a cluster of passengers, squealing in fright. Amya's reaction was instantaneous. She swooped down, scooping the child into her arms, shielding him from the jostling crowd and the chaotic energy radiating from the terminal. The mother rushed forward, tears in her eyes, and whispered thanks. Amya set the child safely with his mother and gestured for everyone to move back. Her composure never wavered. Even in a moment of small heroism, her mind remained on the larger threat. Her phone buzzed again, a coded alert flashing across the screen. Security breach escalating. Confirmed suspicious movement near restricted boarding gates. Immediate response required. The terminal's air grew heavier. Passengers whispered, their anxiety mounting with every passing second. Amya's gaze swept across the floor, analyzing every bag, every movement, every face. She noticed a man adjusting his jacket near Gate E, his posture rigid, eyes flicking toward her. Another passenger glanced nervously at the gates and then back toward the security line. Her instincts told her these weren't ordinary people. They were testing boundaries, gauging the response, waiting for an opening. Amya's mind raced, mapping out scenarios and contingencies. She split her attention between coordinating with the security team and monitoring the crowd, ensuring no one inadvertently approached the danger zone. Officer, keep the gates clear. Every exit must be secured. No one enters without my direct authorization, she commanded sharply. Her words carried authority, and the officers obeyed, their movements precise, almost rehearsed. Suddenly, a loud alarm rang from the overhead speaker system. Emergency evacuation tones, shrill and urgent. Panic surged through the terminal like electricity. People screamed, some bolting toward exits, others frozen in place. Phones flashed everywhere, capturing the unfolding chaos for social media. Amya stepped forward, raising her hands, her voice cutting through the noise. Stay calm. Everyone evacuate slowly. Do not push. Do not run. Follow the security officers. Keep your children close. Remain in the designated safe areas. The crowd hesitated, unsure whether the alarm was real or part of a drill. Amya's authority anchored them like a lighthouse in a storm. Slowly, the passengers began moving, guided by her and the officers. Then she caught sight of the masked man again. He was at the edge of the evacuation line, crouched slightly, attempting to blend in with the fleeing passengers. Her stomach tightened, not with fear but with the precise awareness of the stakes. If he reached the gates, the situation could spiral out of control. She radioed security quietly. Target moving with evac flow near Gate E. Intercept immediately. Do not engage unless necessary. I'm approaching. The officers split, moving toward the man from different angles. He froze, recognizing that he had been spotted, then adjusted his stance, calculating his next move. Amya advanced steadily, her badge visible, her posture unyielding. Every passenger in the vicinity instinctively stepped back, sensing authority. Phones continued recording, the footage capturing the tension, the fear, the drama of the unfolding scene. The man made a sudden, swift motion toward a service cart. Amya reacted instantly, intercepting him before he could reach it. Security officers closed in, restraining him and securing the area. The passengers exhaled collectively, some gasping, others murmuring in astonishment. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. A young FAA inspector had prevented potential disaster with nothing but skill, composure, and quick thinking. Yet Amya's work was far from done. Her phone buzzed once more. Multiple breaches detected near adjacent gates. Active monitoring required. Immediate FAA response necessary. Her jaw tightened. This was no ordinary morning at the airport. Every second now carried weight. Every movement could mean the difference between control and chaos. She squared her shoulders, adjusted her bag, and scanned the crowd. The terminal was tense, alert, waiting for the next move, waiting to see what Amya Johnson would do next. And she knew, without hesitation, that she had only just begun. The terminal was no longer just a crowded airport. It had become a battlefield of controlled panic. Families clutched children tightly. Business travelers pushed luggage ahead like shields, and phones flashed everywhere, recording the chaos. Alarms blared relentlessly, echoing off the walls, blending with the distant shouts of security officers attempting to herd the mass of anxious passengers. Every step was fraught with tension. Every heartbeat seemed amplified. Amya moved like a conductor orchestrating a symphony, her movements fluid but precise, her gaze sweeping the floor for irregularities. She guided passengers, issuing sharp, clear commands. Keep calm. Children in front. Move slowly, do not push. Officers will guide you. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. Even the panicked passengers instinctively obeyed, drawn to the authority radiating from the young woman whose name few even knew. Tyler was nowhere to be seen at the front of the line. He had melted into the background, helpless and flustered, as the situation spiraled beyond anything he had imagined. His earlier confidence, rooted in routine gate operations, had been replaced by fear and awe. Passengers whispered, recording everything on their phones. Social media was capturing the moment in real time. Teen FAA inspector controls airport evacuation. The messages would read later. Amya's eyes scanned the terminal again. The masked man who had caused the initial breach was gone from sight, but her instincts screamed that he was still there. Someone had to be monitoring him. The security officers under her direction fanned out, closing off all exits between D and F, scanning every bag, every passenger, every corner. A young mother stumbled, tripping over her child's small rolling suitcase. Without hesitation, Amya rushed forward, catching both mother and child mid-fall. The mother gasped, tears brimming in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching her child tightly. Amya nodded once, not stopping, and continued her sweep, signaling officers to move passengers away from the gates and toward secure areas. Her calm under pressure was magnetic. Even the most panicked passengers began following her instructions. And then she spotted a small group of teenagers huddled near Gate E, trying to sneak toward the boarding area despite the alarms. One of them had a smartphone aimed at the abandoned bag, filming, unaware of the danger. Amya's voice rang out, firm and commanding. "Step back now. You are in a restricted area." The teens froze, eyes wide, then backed away reluctantly. Phones were recording, flashes lighting up her determined face. Every gesture she made reinforced authority, turning fear into compliance. Amya's phone buzzed again. The alert was more urgent now. Multiple suspicious movements detected near Gate F, unverified individuals attempting to bypass checkpoints. Her pulse quickened slightly, but she did not falter. She directed officers toward the new hotspot, keeping passengers calm while simultaneously tracking the initial masked man. Then she noticed him again, emerging from behind a service cart, trying to blend with a group of evacuees. His posture was tense, cautious, calculated. Her training kicked in. She moved swiftly, intercepting him before he could reach the exit. Security officers followed her lead, closing in from multiple angles. The crowd parted instinctively, giving her the space to act. Phones continued to record, flashes illuminating the precise moment the inspector confronted the potential threat. "Sir," Amya said, voice low but firm, "step away from the restricted area. Now." The man hesitated, eyes flicking toward the security officers. He adjusted his jacket subtly, hands near his pockets. Amya's instincts flared. He was armed, or he had something dangerous hidden. She remained steady, projecting calm authority. Every fiber of her body was tuned to the potential motion, ready to react. Security officers moved in unison, following her commands, restraining the man before he could make another attempt to flee or interfere with the evacuation. The passengers around them gasped collectively. Phones captured every move, flashes catching Amya's determined expression. She had neutralized the immediate threat, but she knew this was only one piece of a larger puzzle. Passengers who had been skeptical, murmuring that she was just a kid, now stared with awe and relief. Mothers whispered thanks, teens whispered in disbelief, and some passengers clapped softly, their voices blending into the tense hum of the terminal. Tyler watched from a distance, pale and trembling, realizing that his moment of authority had been utterly eclipsed. Amya moved through the crowd, scanning every exit and corner. Officers were checking bags, verifying IDs, and guiding passengers toward safe zones. The evacuation, while orderly under her guidance, was still chaotic in its scale. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders, but she remained poised, calculating every next step. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed again, accompanied by a flashing red alert on the overhead monitors. Secondary threat detected near Gate G. Active response required. Her heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from sheer awareness of the stakes. "Security," she shouted, her voice carrying across the terminal. "Gate G, focus there immediately. Evacuate passengers toward the designated zones. Keep your eyes on every individual. No one moves without clearance." The terminal responded like a living organism, officers moving efficiently, passengers following her every instruction, phones capturing her as a central figure of authority. Children clung to parents, some leaning against her presence for reassurance. The tension was thick, palpable, like electricity in the air. Amya's eyes scanned the floor one last time before advancing toward the new hotspot. Every movement, every glance, every command reinforced her presence and authority. She moved with a purpose that inspired confidence, even in the midst of panic. Every passenger instinctively obeyed, recognizing the gravity of her role, even if they didn't fully understand it. And then a small explosion of movement near the far gate caught her eye. A service cart toppled over, sending luggage tumbling. Panic surged among a group of passengers, but she reacted instantly, stepping between them and directing officers to intervene. Calm, precise, unwavering, her actions ensured that the chaos did not spiral further. As she straightened, she realized that the evacuation was far from over. Security officers were still monitoring multiple zones, passengers were still anxious, and the threat was far from neutralized. Her phone buzzed once again with a new alert. Potential coordinated breach detected. Multiple targets. Immediate FAA oversight required. Amya inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She had contained the immediate danger, but the ripple effects of the breach were still unfolding. Every second now mattered more than ever. Her eyes swept the terminal once again, taking in every face, every movement, every potential weak point. The crowd had begun moving toward safety, but she knew the evacuation was just the beginning. There were more threats, more decisions, more lives to safeguard. And in that moment, amid the flashing lights, the alarms, and the chaos, she understood that her real challenge was just beginning. Every eye in the terminal was on her now, every camera recording her actions, every whisper acknowledging her authority. Amya Johnson, FAA inspector, had transformed an ordinary boarding gate into a controlled operation of life-or-death precision. But the alerts on her phone reminded her that this was far from over. And as she prepared to move toward the next hotspot, she knew that one misstep could have catastrophic consequences, and that the terminal, the passengers, and the officers were all relying on her alone. The terminal had shifted from chaos to a tense, precarious order. Passengers clustered in designated safe zones, eyes wide, phones raised, recording every moment. Security officers moved like a synchronized unit under Amya's guidance, scanning every corner, verifying IDs, and communicating efficiently through radios. But amidst the ordered evacuation, the presence of the masked man, the unidentified threats, and the repeated alerts created a taut thread of tension that no one could ignore. Amya's black blazer seemed to radiate authority. Her badge caught the overhead fluorescent lights as she moved with precise, calculated steps. Every eye followed her, even those passengers who had initially doubted her. Whispers circulated. "She's just 19, and she's running this entire operation." Teens raised their phones higher, capturing the scene for social media. The flashes of cameras illuminated her determined face in cinematic bursts. Tyler lingered on the periphery, pale and flustered. His earlier confidence had vanished completely. He had followed airport protocol for years, yet the young inspector had rendered him obsolete in minutes. His hands trembled slightly as he gestured toward a group of passengers trying to approach the restricted area. Amya's sharp gaze caught him instantly. "Step aside," she said firmly, her voice low but commanding. "This is a federal safety matter. You are no longer in control. Follow my instructions." Tyler swallowed hard, nodding, retreating. He realized that for the first time he was witnessing authority in its purest form. A young woman, small but unwavering, commanding compliance without fear, panic, or hesitation. Passengers instinctively moved back, creating a buffer zone around Amya and the officers. Phones continued recording, capturing the drama with cinematic clarity. The hero of the terminal, small in stature but commanding in presence, orchestrating order amidst chaos. Amya's attention snapped back to the masked man near Gate F. His movements had become more calculated, deliberate, testing the boundaries of the security cordon. She observed him closely, the subtle twitch in his hands, the cautious way he scanned the officers, and the way he adjusted his jacket. Every motion told her he was prepared to act if given the opportunity. Her phone buzzed. Another alert, more urgent. Secondary breach confirmed. Masked male near Gate F. Possible armed threat. Security units require immediate guidance. Her pulse quickened, not with fear but with acute focus. She understood the gravity. This was no longer a routine inspection. Every decision, every command could mean the difference between life and catastrophe. Amya gestured to officers with precision. Contain him. Do not engage unless necessary. Maintain perimeter. Evacuate all passengers in proximity. Her words were short, authoritative, and unequivocal. Officers responded instantly, forming a cordon around the man without panicking the passengers. The tension was almost palpable, like a taut wire ready to snap. Through the crowd, a mother clutched her child, eyes wide with fear, whispering, Is she really in charge?" Amya's gaze briefly met hers, reassuring yet commanding. "Follow directions. You and your child are safe," she said softly, projecting calm amid turmoil. The mother nodded, gripping her child tighter. Amya then moved closer to the masked man, her steps deliberate, each one calculated to maintain authority while closing the distance. The man froze as her presence became undeniable. The passengers instinctively parted, creating a corridor of space. Cameras captured every angle, the tense standoff, the authority she exuded, the potential threat frozen under her gaze. A sudden motion from the man made her react instantly. Her training kicked in, years of simulations, shadowing experienced inspectors, and months of hands-on FAA drills, all of it merged into a single fluid motion. She intercepted him with precision, stepping between him and the nearest passengers, her hands ready to restrain if necessary. Security officers flanked him immediately, moving in sync with her commands. Tyler watched, slack-jawed, as the scene unfolded. He realized the magnitude of her skill, composure, and authority. She had taken control not just of the situation, but of everyone in the terminal, earning unquestioned compliance from passengers and officers alike. The masked man resisted subtly, testing boundaries, but Amya's presence left no doubt. He was cornered, observed, and could not advance without immediate consequence. Her eyes locked on him, reading his every micro-expression, every twitch, every subtle shift in weight. She was a predator assessing potential movement, calm yet merciless in her focus. Her phone buzzed again. Another alert, this one flashing red across the screen. Tertiary threat detected near Gate G. Confirmed movement of unverified personnel. Immediate FAA intervention required. Amya exhaled slowly, maintaining composure, even as her mind raced. She gestured toward officers again. Divide units. Maintain the perimeter around the masked individual. Evacuate passengers from gates G and H immediately. Keep all communication clear and concise. The officers moved seamlessly, splitting their attention without hesitation. Amya's authority radiated through them, ensuring they acted with precision and control. Passengers followed instructions, forming lines, staying calm and giving space. Phones continued to flash. Social media streams captured every moment, broadcasting the drama to the world in real time. And then, in a moment of clarity, Amya realized something critical. The masked man was not acting alone. There were subtle indications, brief glances, small movements in the crowd, the coordinated timing of alarms. that suggested additional threats could be positioned nearby, waiting to exploit any lapse in security. She adjusted her stance, scanning every gate, every exit, every individual. Her voice rang out again, calm but commanding. "Attention! Security perimeter is active. All passengers must remain in designated safe zones. Officers are monitoring all exits. Anyone attempting to bypass instructions will be intercepted. Remain calm." The passengers obeyed, awestruck by her authority, some whispering, "She's in charge, she's incredible." Tyler could only watch, pale and silent, as the young inspector moved with flawless precision, her mind operating on multiple levels at once: threat assessment, crowd control, officer coordination, and strategic planning. Then through the crowd she caught sight of the first bag, the one that had triggered the evacuation. It lay innocuous, almost blending into the floor, but her instincts told her otherwise. Every detail mattered. She approached cautiously, signaling officers to flank it. The masked man's eyes flicked toward it, and she realized he had been orchestrating the panic as a distraction, testing the responses, measuring reactions. Amya's heart pounded in rhythm with the alarms, her calm exterior unshaken. She had neutralized the immediate threat, but she knew the operation wasn't over. Every step forward now carried immense stakes. And as she stood there, surveying the controlled chaos she had created, she realized authority wasn't just about command. It was about presence, awareness, and decisive action in moments when panic could destroy everything. The terminal waited, tense, alert, every eye on her. The masked man remained restrained but defiant. Officers and passengers alike felt the weight of her command. And through it all, one undeniable truth remained. Amya Johnson, 19-year-old FAA inspector, had transformed an ordinary airport terminal into a controlled, strategic operation. But as her phone buzzed again with yet another alert, the unspoken truth settled over her like a shadow. This was far from over. The terminal had become a study in tension. Every passenger's gaze alternated between the flashing alarms, the restrained masked man, and the young inspector orchestrating the evacuation with uncanny precision. Phones recorded the scene, capturing every flicker of movement, every decisive step, and every expression of fear or relief. Amya moved deliberately, her eyes scanning every inch of the terminal, her instincts razor-sharp, every sense heightened by the pressure of imminent danger. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a priority alert. Immediate threat near boarding gates H and J, unverified individual displaying aggressive behavior, possible armed suspect, evacuation status critical. Amya's jaw tightened. She had contained the initial threat, coordinated officers, and guided passengers to safety. But now, the stakes had escalated further. The realization that multiple breaches were coordinated hit her like a punch. This wasn't just a lone opportunist or a random security lapse. It was organized, deliberate, and dangerous. She gestured sharply to a team of officers, her voice calm yet firm. "Split units. H and J evacuate passengers immediately. Maintain perimeter and monitor behavior. Do not engage unless necessary. I am approaching." Tyler lingered on the sidelines, pale and helpless, the magnitude of the operation dawning on him. He watched as the young woman he had once tried to stop from boarding now commanded the entire terminal. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, radiated authority and control. He felt small in comparison, powerless, as the situation intensified. Amya moved swiftly toward Gate H, eyes scanning for anomalies. Her training, experience, and intuition guided her. Every step, every glance, every micro-movement of passengers and officers was analyzed. She noticed a man near the emergency exit, a figure trying to blend into the crowd while adjusting a dark jacket. Her heart rate ticked up slightly, not from fear, but from acute awareness. She signaled discreetly to officers. "Target near exit H, monitor closely. Do not engage unless I authorize. Maintain calm among passengers." The officers responded instantly, moving into position without panicking the passengers. Amya's calm composure acted as an anchor, ensuring that fear did not spread further. The crowd watched, awestruck, whispers circulating. "She's handling this like a pro, she's incredible." And then it happened. The masked man from earlier, the one who had initially caused the panic, attempted to break free from the secured area. His movements were sudden, aggressive, and dangerous. Adrenaline surged through Amya's veins. Every second mattered. She lunged forward, intercepting him with precision. Officers flanked him immediately, restraining him once again, preventing any potential escalation. The crowd gasped, some whispering, some filming, some frozen in shock. Phones flashed constantly, capturing her courage and authority under pressure. Tyler watched, pale and trembling, realizing he had witnessed something extraordinary. A young inspector controlling life-and-death situations with composure beyond her years. Amya's phone buzzed again. Another alert, multiple threats detected, coordinated breaches possible, active monitoring and FAA oversight required at all terminals. Her eyes narrowed. She had neutralized immediate threats, but the alerts indicated a larger plan unfolding. She needed to act decisively before chaos escalated further. She turned to the restrained masked man, studying him carefully. There was a calculated calm in his eyes, but beneath it she saw panic, the realization that his plan was unraveling. Her mind raced. Who else was involved, and where were the secondary threats positioned? Amya gestured to officers to maintain a tight perimeter. "Keep him restrained. Do not let him communicate with anyone. Check for concealed items. Evacuate surrounding passengers to designated safe zones immediately." The crowd moved, some guided by officers, some instinctively following her instructions. Children clung to parents, business travelers held their phones like shields, and anxious murmurs filled the terminal. Then through the noise and movement, Amya noticed something alarming. A shadow moving rapidly near Gate J, partially obscured by service carts. Her instincts screamed danger. She moved toward it, officers flanking her, every step precise and deliberate. The figure, a man in a hooded jacket, paused, glancing toward her. Recognition flashed in his eyes. He reached subtly for his jacket pocket. Amya's training kicked in. She reacted instantly, intercepting his movement before he could act. The officers restrained him immediately. Her eyes scanned the terminal, alert, vigilant. There was no time to breathe, no time to relax. The alerts were relentless, each one signaling potential catastrophe. Amya took a deep breath, forcing her pulse to steady. The passengers, witnessing her every move, were simultaneously terrified and awed. Her authority radiated through the terminal, transforming fear into compliance. Every passenger instinctively obeyed her, even those who had initially doubted her. Tyler, still on the sidelines, muttered under his breath, I can't believe it. She's amazing." Amya didn't flinch. She scanned the crowd one final time before approaching the restrained man. She knelt slightly, speaking quietly but firmly. "Who are you working with? What's the plan? Every second you waste answering helps me protect everyone here." The man remained defiant, but his movements were constrained, controlled by officers. His resistance was minimal now, and his gaze flickered nervously, betraying uncertainty. Amya straightened, addressing the officers and passengers. "Security perimeter is maintained. Threats are contained. Evacuation continues. Officers, continue monitoring all areas for additional suspicious behavior. Passengers, remain in designated safe zones." The terminal exhaled collectively, though tension still hung in the air like a storm cloud. Cameras continued flashing, phones recording, witnesses whispering in awe. Amya's calm under pressure, her decisive actions, and her commanding presence had transformed a potential catastrophe into a controlled, coordinated operation. Yet she knew, with a chilling certainty, that the coordinated threats were not yet fully neutralized. The alerts on her phone indicated additional breaches, secondary targets, potential accomplices, and the possibility of further escalation. Her jaw tightened. She adjusted her bag, checked her badge, and surveyed the controlled chaos she had orchestrated. The passengers were safer, the immediate threats contained, but the terminal remained on edge. Every decision now carried immense weight. Every movement mattered. And in that tense, electric moment, she realized the truth she had been training for her entire career. Authority, presence, and decisive action were not abstract qualities. They were the difference between life and death. The terminal waited, eyes on her. Officers followed her lead flawlessly. Passengers obeyed instinctively. And as another alert flashed across her phone, Amya Johnson knew that the final test, the one that would push her to her absolute limits, was still coming. The terminal trembled with tension, the echo of alarms still lingering in the polished floors. Passengers huddled in safe zones, eyes wide, phones capturing every detail as Amya Johnson moved with purposeful authority through the chaos. Officers flanked her, each step coordinated, each command precise. Every nerve in her body was alert, every instinct sharpened to the highest degree. She had contained the immediate threats, but she knew the terminal was still vulnerable. One misstep and disaster could erupt again. The masked man from the initial breach remained restrained, flanked by officers. His gaze flickered nervously, defiance tempered by uncertainty. Amya's eyes never left him. She crouched slightly, voice low but firm. "Who else is involved? Where are the secondary threats? Now is your chance to cooperate and minimize the consequences." He spat a curse, but his hands trembled slightly. She could see the panic beneath the veneer of aggression. It was a fleeting moment, but one she capitalized on, her mind racing through contingency plans, evacuation procedures, and emergency protocols. Across the terminal, another alert flashed, secondary targets detected near Gate H and the loading areas. Amya's jaw tightened. This was the final test. Every officer under her command was already in position, every passenger evacuated to safe zones. But she knew that if these secondary threats were coordinated, the next moments could determine the outcome of the entire crisis. "Move units to gates H and J immediately," she commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. "Focus on containment. Evacuate the area. Maintain visual contact with all personnel. Do not engage unless necessary." Officers moved swiftly, coordinating through their radios. Passengers watched, whispering in awe and fear. The entire terminal seemed suspended in a single, taut moment, a delicate balance between control and chaos. Cameras flashed, capturing the drama in cinematic bursts, social media buzzing with videos of the young FAA inspector orchestrating life-or-death operations with unwavering composure. Amya's eyes scanned the floor one last time. There, a shadow moving near Gate H, she recognized it immediately, a secondary suspect attempting to blend with the crowd. She gestured subtly to an officer who moved to intercept. The suspect froze, realizing he had been spotted. Panic flickered in his eyes. Amya advanced, her presence magnetic, authoritative, and commanding. She projected calm determination, the kind that forced obedience even from the frightened and the reckless. "Step away from the restricted area," she said quietly but sharply. "Now." The suspect hesitated, but the officers flanked him immediately, restraining him. A collective exhale swept through the terminal. Passengers whispered, some crying quietly, others whispering fervent admiration. Phones flashed continuously, documenting the resolution of the crisis in real time. Tyler stood frozen on the periphery, jaw slack, watching the young inspector. He had seen authority in many forms during his years at the airport, but nothing like this. Amya had transformed the terminal into a controlled operation, neutralized multiple threats, and maintained calm under pressure, all while facing danger head-on. And yet the alerts persisted. One more tertiary threats detected near Gate F and adjacent luggage areas. Amya's pulse quickened, not with fear but with clarity and resolve. She gestured to officers. "Final sweep. Check all areas, all luggage, all personnel. Evacuate any remaining passengers. Ensure the perimeter is secure." The officers moved swiftly, systematically clearing each area. Amya's presence anchored them. Every step, every command, every glance reinforced the authority she embodied. Passengers followed her directions without question, understanding instinctively that compliance was necessary for their safety. Then, amidst the organized chaos, she noticed something subtle: the restrained masked man attempting to communicate covertly with another individual in the crowd. Her eyes narrowed. She moved with lightning precision, signaling officers to tighten the perimeter. The attempt failed, communication cut off, the suspect neutralized. The tension finally began to ease. The secondary threats were contained. Passengers were safe. Officers reported clear perimeters, no further movement detected. The alarms quieted, replaced by the low hum of relief as passengers tentatively began to breathe again. Phones still flashed, capturing every detail, documenting the story that would circulate online for weeks. Amya stepped back, surveying the terminal. Mothers clutched children, whispers of awe filled the air, and officers exchanged nods of respect. Tyler, pale and humbled, approached slowly. I don't even know what to say," he muttered. Amya's gaze met his, calm, composed, yet carrying the weight of the entire operation. "It's not about words," she said quietly. "It's about doing what's necessary, keeping everyone safe. That's all that matters." Officers escorted the restrained suspects toward secure areas. Passengers began moving cautiously, some toward gates for rescheduled flights, others to exits. The terminal slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, though the tension remained palpable in the background. Amya walked through the terminal one last time, checking every detail, ensuring no loose ends remained. Phones captured her movements, officers followed her commands, and passengers whispered gratitude and awe. She had turned potential disaster into a controlled, managed outcome through authority, courage, and precision. Then she finally allowed herself a brief exhale. The weight of adrenaline and responsibility lifted slightly, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. The chaos had been contained, lives had been protected, and a young, underestimated FAA inspector had proven her skill, composure, and authority under the most extreme circumstances. Passengers began approaching her, some shyly, some tearfully, offering thanks, hugs, and admiration. Social media posts multiplied instantly. "Teen FAA inspector saves airport. Calm, composed, incredible." Cameras captured the final, cinematic moments of the resolution. The heroine of the terminal, standing resolute, unwavering, and fully in command. Tyler finally approached again, this time with humility. I was wrong," he said quietly. "You're amazing. I've never seen anything like it." Amya gave him a brief, professional nod. "It's not about being amazing," she said softly. "It's about ensuring everyone gets home safely. That's the only measure that matters." As the last passengers were guided to safety and the final officers completed perimeter sweeps, Amya finally allowed herself to step back. She checked her phone one final time. Alerts had ceased. The terminal was secure. The crisis resolved. Yet even as relief washed over her, she knew one truth remained. In her line of work, the next challenge was always waiting. Authority, presence, and decisiveness were not skills to be used once. They were lifelines, to be exercised whenever danger appeared. And in that moment, amid the echoing whispers, flashing cameras, and relieved passengers, Amya Johnson, FAA inspector, stood tall, small in stature but monumental in courage, authority, and unwavering resolve. The terminal exhaled as one, and the story, the cinematic, tense, real-life story of courage under fire, was forever captured in the hearts and cameras of those who had witnessed it. But deep in her mind, Amya knew, vigilance never ended, and as she walked toward the exit, ready to face whatever came next, She did so fully aware that authority was earned not through rank, but through action, presence, and the courage to face fear head-on.